episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to a Friday edition of Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. And this is a show so good, it happens every Friday. Great Scott to True Crime Phil with the legendary detective Phil Waters. He was a Houston homicide detective for 193 years. He solved every case. Then you've got Scott Duffy, and probably the greatest hat I've ever seen, looking incredibly youthful. Scott, if I didn't know any better, I would think that you were 27 in that hat, Scott Duffy. Scott Duffy is wearing an STS hat. I sent it to him as a small token of our appreciation. Phil got one also. The merch store is, I don't know what's going on with it, but it should be open. The CEO will probably put a link in there at some point. I was a couple of seconds late today, and then Phil Waters was right on time, but then his Phil, say hello to us so I can see if your audio's in sync. How was your week, Phil? Let's start there.
It was wonderful.
You're in sync. Your audio sounds great. I appreciate that
It's
very
not a
much.
bad Japanese movie.
No, it's all good.
Okay, cool.
Scott, I would be remiss if I didn't ask. By the way, did people tell you they love your hat, Scott?
Yes, all over town.
Mm.
Big hit. I might have gotten one extra subscriber.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Phil's just getting up and leaving because he hates what we're talking about.
He's looking for his hat.
I'd like to see. Oh, there it is. Hey,
well,
Phil.
Join the club here, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
And show him the back of the hat, Phil. Show him the back of the hat. I wish
The
I
back
had
of the
that
hat, yes.
Best guess in true
Nice.
crime. It says it right there. I'm not sure if there's anyone watching us right now. I think they are. There are some people here.
Just the three of us.
It'd be great. It'd be great if it was just that. Yeah, look, someone is watching us. It says love the hat.
So here we go. There we go. We'll be the hat brothers today.
Yeah. Hey, Phil Waters, when you were on patrol duty, I'm curious because you're a big, strong man. Were you quick on your feet? Were you able to chase down perps, or would you have to have the wiry Scott Duffys come in to do that?
No, I was quite the chaser and catcher in my youth.
Really?
Yeah, and it was always a lot of fun for me. I enjoyed chasing them on foot because they kept looking over their shoulder and I was still there. When
you would finish a foot pursuit, were you all like, would it get you a little extra angry? Like when you're cuffing the guy, like were you? No,
I wouldn't. No, anger's not the emotion. You're pretty pumped.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pretty excited. And once you make that contact and they're on the ground, it's like roping calves, you know. Once you get them tied, it's good.
What's the let me ask you this. Did you ever have a singular dangerous moment that kind of made you nervous in a foot pursuit? In other words, you ever grab somebody and he tried to pull a gun or grab your gun or anything along those lines?
That never happened to me. No. Once I get a hold of them, I'm pretty much, they're getting under control. So.
And Duffy, we talked about this with you. I mean, you do look like a skateboarder, like the kind of guy that in elementary school was sliding into home plate during kickball on the pavement. So did you enjoy pursuits? We talked about this once recently, but did you enjoy them as much? And were you able to always chase down the perpetrators?
Yeah, I wouldn't say 100%. It was high up there. Maybe one or two got away, and that's only they got away from me. But then, ran into the dragnet, as we like to call out our perimeter folks. But I enjoyed a fantastic foot chase. I enjoyed car chases, but as I was on, those started to dwindle with supervisors saying, "Shut it down." That's a tough thing to do. They're not going to shut down a foot chase,
Yeah.
but often a car chase they would.
That's interesting. So, are there more and more restrictions on car chases? You see them in LA, obviously. What's up, Space Coast, who survived the LA fires? Um, but Scott, I mean, these days, if there is a pursuit in suburban Philadelphia, do they often call it off because they don't want to get people in danger?
Often, yeah. I mean, it's a high bar to get into a car chase. Can't chase a stolen car unless there's something else attached to it. A violent felony or some other. But a traffic violation if somebody's just going to ignore the cops and take off. Yeah, not allowed to do.
Well, one must remember that any kind of a pursuit, especially in a vehicle, the officer in pursuit is responsible for the safety of the people around him, of course, fellow officers that may be engaged in the pursuit, and the person they're pursuing. So I've been in a couple of pursuits where I just shut them down because it just wasn't worth the danger factors. And but it's kind of that old story. Why is somebody running from the police? You don't know if it's because they got a traffic ticket that they haven't paid or whether they just murdered someone.
Yeah.
So the only way you determine that is to catch them.
I mean, traffic stops
to catch them.
Yeah. By the way, thank you to Missy Ann. I'm not even gonna go into the fact that I wrote a book, even though I did write a book. I really appreciate this. Thank you very much. That's all I can say on this Friday. Carmen, I just did.
Speaking of your book,
yeah.
My wife and I just started reading it last night.
Oh boy, I'm nervous about that because you're a good.
Just started reading it.
All right. Well, keep in mind, I'm not as religious man as you, Phil. I'm always working on it, but don't look down on me.
Well, it's pretty. I'm on part. We just finished part 2 of, I think, the first kind of. You don't really have chapters listed, but
do you listen to it together or actually read it aloud? How do you guys read it?
I read it aloud.
Oh, that's awesome. That's kind of
like a bedtime story.
Yeah.
It is. Well, that's exactly when we do it. So
yeah,
she's getting ready for bed, and I'm already in it. I start reading it, and then it's what our reading puts us to sleep. So not just your book, but I mean, anytime we do it. So we read a lot, but I was it's the first part of that I've read so far is very very interesting. It's very and especially your opening up about your mom's relationship and yours, and your brother and your dad and all the stuff. Just the beginning of it is fascinating.
Thank you, Phil. Coming from you, that means a lot. But I'm also, I feel like the principal is reading my book now, so I'm nervous, and you've just spiked my anxiety. Philadelphia shoulder surgeon Scott, where's my shirt? I don't know what she's talking about. STS, FBI.
Yeah,
made it through my cases to be here. By the way, shoulder surgeon, email me or text me. Been having this neck issue. I go to the neck spine doctor in Miami yesterday. $250, no copay. The guy literally sees me for 5 minutes to tell me to go get an MRI, and then he might have to give me some injections. So do you do necks also? That's my question. Philadelphia shoulder surgeon. It's so hard to
You're
say.
Gonna get shoulder surgery?
No, it's my neck, but since she's
your neck.
The shoulder's close enough to the neck that maybe she could do both.
Well, I've had both shoulders done. So
you ever have neck issues, Phil?
No, have not had a neck issue.
Look at this from Missy Ann. Oh, sorry. Do you find yourself reading Joel's name in Carm's voice? So when you get to my name, she says Joel.
Well, since I have met and spoken with Carm in person,
yes.
When I read your little actual post from Carm to you, I do hear her voice speaking.
Yeah.
And then when you're quoting her in the book, I hear her voice. When you are speaking, I hear your voice. So yes, we're able to make that connection.
That is very interesting. I'm looking for so Carm and I just did a podcast. It's going to be out in a little while. I'm not 1,000% sure. It's probably the funniest podcast. It was probably the craziest thing I've ever done. I'm gonna post it when we're out. But the guy who hosts the show, he is 88 years old, and it's called Especially for Seniors. I'm pretty sure. So it's like he created a podcast for people in that demographic, and we could not. He couldn't get the right StreamYard link. Then Carm couldn't get on the right StreamYard. Then Carm was on the StreamYard, and then Larry, the host, deleted the StreamYard. So by the time we actually started the podcast, it was like 45 minutes into it. But that would have been the best podcast, like the whole process before of us trying to actually start the podcast. So that's pretty much how the whole podcast went. Larry's an awesome guy. Here's a full circle weird moment. Larry is a retired dentist in Massachusetts. Mitch Albom wrote a blurb for my book. He famously wrote Tuesdays with Maury, the best-selling memoir of all time. One day I will overtake him. But Maury Schwartz, who's the focus of Tuesdays with Maury, was Larry's patient. Larry was a dentist. So full circle moment. Larry knew Maury. Maury is the subject of Tuesdays with Maury. Okay. I think I've lost everybody by now. Back to
by the way, real quickly, at 1 o'clock Central Time today, I have to be out of here.
That's absolutely no problem. Okay,
yeah.
So that's 2 o'clock my time. Okay. No worries. Now, but speaking of that, we're getting to Bryan Kohberger in a minute, but I don't feel like talking that much Bryan Kohberger today. So I had an idea in my head, which is always bad. By the way, it's probably going to be a crazy show. So I am not a morning person. I hate mornings. I don't like mornings. I hate these people who are like these motivational speakers. You got to get up at 5 a.m. and have your coffee, work. But anyway, today I couldn't sleep because Ethel, my dog's a pain in my ass and wakes me up every hour for some reason. And so I got up at like 6:45 and I went to the gym. So I'm highly energized, starting to come off of my endorphin high. I realized about a week ago that I'm not going to live forever. So now I am working in triple time to try to work out and keep myself healthy. And that includes, at least for the time being, eliminating Reese's peanut butter cups. But Scott Duffy, were you aware your whole life that you would not be alive for an eternity? Or is that something that just struck you recently?
I just learned that just on this show, Joel, that we're not living forever. So I'm going to check out and go do a few things if that's the case.
Yeah. Phil Water. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
So I told Philadelphia Shoulder Doc I would give her a shout out. So shout out. And quick on the T-shirt, she gifted me a awesome true crime T-shirt. I think it's from the Alcatraz collection. We saw this fantastic shirt that caught my eye. But like anything else, you delay, you go back. This was at CrimeCon, and it was gone. So she remembered. She picked one up and gave it to me yesterday. As we're part, I don't talk about it, but we're part of a fantastic cold case homicide working group of all sorts of backgrounds in Philadelphia. And it's called the VDUC Society. And so we were both at this meeting yesterday, and I said I would wear the T-shirt.
Yeah.
I won't explain the T-shirt because I'm going to wear it next week. But the reason why I'm not wearing it today is because my son fell in love with it, so he's wearing it now.
I would like a VDuck hat. I'm a bit of a hat person, so PSS, get on that for me. Someone was just asking, what about Bryan Kohberger? They must be new to Fridays. It takes us a while to get to the subject matter. We're getting there in a minute. Kind of bored by him, so this is the idea I had that I was going to present. We do a little bit of Kohberger, then we do a little bit of Ask Phil and Scott, whatever the hell you want to ask them, and then I've got some wacky stories of the week. And Phil's on a tight schedule here, but before we get to that, Phil Waters, last night. We actually had a really interesting show, and I'm looking for something that I need to read to you. But so there's a trial going on in Los Angeles right now. There are two defendants. It's a guy named David Pierce, Pearce, and his former roommate. The two of them are in trial for double homicide. He was posing. This guy was posing as a big Hollywood talent manager, record executive. And so after a rave party, he would lure women into his home with this roommate and then give them a cocktail of horrible drugs, including GHB. And then he would do things that you should not be doing, the R word, which I can't say. What was fascinating about last night's show is that for the first time ever, the defendant's sister spoke. She saw a previous podcast, reached out to me, and she came on. And it just made me realize, Phil, she felt like she had to apologize to the victims and the public because she's estranged from her brother, hasn't talked to him in 10 years, says she hates him, says he's a horrible person, but she feels a degree of shame because she's related to him. What would you say to this person? And I've got a follow-up on this for Scott Duffy. Phil, what would you say to this sister of the defendant who says she feels a lot of shame that she's related to a guy that drugged these two women and left them for dead outside a hospital? She came on the show last night and wanted to publicly apologize.
I can understand it. But, and it's too bad that she has to feel that way based on something her brother did. You know, you can pick your friends, you can't pick your family. And I mean, just being objective about this, I mean, she doesn't have any responsibility to apologize for him. If anybody needs to apologize, it's him. But I think it's certainly a testimony to her character that she feels that pain for those victims, and hopes that in some way that her apology is going to, I'm sure in hopes that it will be received in the manner in which it's being given, that it's sincere, and that she feels terrible for these women that have been victimized by her brother. So good for her, you know, that she would be willing to do that.
Yeah. So Scott Duffy, there was a kind of breaking news on this story just coincidentally this morning, which I think we're going to cover next week, but I wanted to get your take on this. So she wanted to remain anonymous, but she goes by Allie on the podcast. And so Allie last night was also saying she's not really talking to her mother either, because the mother is basically kind of coddling the brother, right? And sort of being like subservient to him. So the mother just coincidentally had flown into Los Angeles to attend the trial yesterday for the first time to support this kid. But then there's a story today. Listen to this, Scott Duffy. I'm hearing a little weird audio. Here's listen to this. Prosecutors told Judge Eleanor Hunter they wanted to discuss on the record a phone call David Pierce had allegedly made to his mother using another inmate's PIN. Prosecutors claim the jail held held calls to his mother and Pierce, that he had information that Pierce told the mother. The defendant tells the mother that he had information on the jurors regarding their identities and where they worked. Prosecutors alleged that he told her he was trying to engineer a mistrial, and his mom then called an attorney for a three-way conversation. How in the hell, my question, would a defendant get information on a jury before trial? It's just it's a very interesting, odd thing. But now apparently this is all being investigated.
As well as it should. Wow. So that's that takes a little bit of doing. It takes probably some inside information, which is either coming from somebody that's a very close associate, or there's some money being exchanged. However, have you some outside investigator who is following people? Either way, depending on where this investigation goes, unless it's all just made up, for him doing anything possible to cause a mistrial, there is some criminality to that, especially if with witness tampering, jury tampering, all that. So it's and then to have somebody think that they're anonymous and not going to be found out when on these recorded lines that they simply pay or do whatever they do in exchange of favors to jump on somebody else's line, thinking that that it's not going to be found out, says a lot about these people.
Yeah. So the judge said, Judge Hunter told the defendant, "That's incredibly troubling. I don't know what to say at this point, but shame on you. But I'm sure you don't care about that." Interestingly, he is sitting there just looking kind of crazy in this photo. So we might pick up on this next week, depending on which way it goes. A question specifically for Phil. My mom from Tennis Girl 101, one of our OGs. My mom wants to know if Phil knew the subject of the movie Hitman named Gary Johnson lurking at her place. Not the hitman, but she is lurking. Tennis Girl is lurking at her place. So, Phil, do you know Gary Johnson?
I did know Gary. I did know Gary, and I worked with Gary.
So who's Gary? What's the deal? I don't know the story.
Well, Gary Johnson, he was a DA investigator at the Harris County District Attorney's Office for years. He ended up kind of being their tech guy, but he was the one that we went to when we got murder for hire cases, and he would represent the hitman. He was very good at it. We put a lot of bad guys that wanted to solicit a capital murder on other people, and Gary was the guy. And there was a movie made about him. I think it's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. But it was interesting to watch the movie, having known Gary and worked with him. And I first worked with him when I was in narcotics, and he asked me to help his sister out with a guy. And so he was a good guy and smart guy, and he has passed away. So that movie is very interesting, and it's pretty accurate.
Is it called The Hitman? Is that what it's called?
I believe it is. I believe that's the name of it, and I think it's on Netflix. I think that's where I saw it.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
In fact, it's funny that I saw it. When I saw it, I was just going through movies, and I saw this one called The Hitman, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I looked to see what it was about, and it said Gary's name. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? I said, I wonder if it's got to be. It's got to be Gary Johnson. Got to be the guy I worked with. And so we clicked on it, and sure enough, that's what it was. So, and I believe, in fact, I think the movie came out after Gary had passed away.
Jimmy McNutty saying that similar case here, and the guy got over 200 years. This guy, David Pierce, is also alleged to have AR'd at least 7 women previously, where the charges, I guess the evidence wasn't strong enough to bring charges. Phil, by the way, I failed to ask you this, but you just mentioned this poor man, Gary Johnson, who passed away. Were you aware of the fact that you do not live forever? And at what point did you become aware of that, Phil? I thought I might be on
I've
Earth
been
for a
aware of
while.
the fact that I don't live forever for quite a while now. So I can tell you that when you're put in harm's way, which I have been a couple of times, it certainly becomes very vivid that, in a couple of cases, I literally dodged that bullet. So it's you get, I think in our line of work and what Scott and I have done for a career for most of our adult lives, I think that we maybe have that experience. It's much more vivid to us than it is our mortalities. We're much more aware of it, I think, than maybe other people are.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I was spoiled. I never really thought much about it. Now I'm going to probably start obsessing about it. Phil, one final question on this morbid topic. Once you're dead, how do you know that you have died? Have you ever pondered this?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Once you're dead, how do you know that you are no longer living? How do you know that you are dead if you're dead? Have you ever pondered this? This is thoughts that go through my mind.
You want me to open that? Really, you want me to open that can of worms again?
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know.
I know that I have no doubt that I am going to know that I have only begun to live when I take my last breath here.
That's amazing. I wish I had that faith. Anyway, all right, so let's move on to Bryan Kohberger here. Here we go. Scott Duffy. There are a couple of issues going on with him that I just wanted, because we haven't done it in a long time. Numero uno is his defense team led by Ann Taylor. They are trying to figure out a way to remove the death penalty as an option. And one of the things that they're trying to do is leverage this legal precedent that was used in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. Basically, there's a few points to this, that the defense is claiming that prosecutors failed to meet discovery deadlines, and that they never gave a detailed list of expert witnesses, and therefore it violates his constitutional rights. They're obviously doing their job as defense attorneys, but if there's ever a person who needed to probably, be given death as an option, it's him if he is convicted of these crimes. What's going on here? Are they just using what they can? Obviously, Lori Vallow happened in Idaho. This is going to happen in the same town, Boise, Idaho, where it's going to be, where the trial is going to happen. But what's the defense trying to do here besides actually get the death penalty off the table? Is that all they're after?
Oh, I'm sure they would love him to walk out free, acquitted, forever gone, or So they're doing exactly what I've seen in every case that I've worked, where they are trying to destroy every part of the case in every minute detail leading up to the trial, because they know trial is not going to be good for them. So throw as much as you can beforehand, and try to see if you can get something to work in your favor, because so far from everything I've seen, it is favoring prosecution.
I tell you guys, I love your hats. So Phil Waters, to you, back to the Lori Vallow Daybell case in 2023, Judge Stephen Boyce, who presided over that, he did remove the death penalty from Lori Vallow Daybell's trial. because of a technicality, because prosecutors' late disclosure of thousands of documents and over 100 hours of recorded jail calls. And now the defense is suggesting the same thing could happen here. The prosecution, meanwhile, says that they deny failing to meet discovery obligations and pose any sort of sanctions. And they argue that the circumstances are way different than Lori Valadabel, primarily because she asked for a speedy trial and he waived his right to a speedy trial. I know you're not a lawyer, but you understand the law. What is happening here?
Well, I've had death penalty cases. I've put 9 people on death row in Texas, including a couple cop killers. And I don't know how that is considered in Idaho. I mean, in Texas, there are 2 factors to determine a death penalty case. Is there any mitigating circumstances? And is this person a further threat to society? So I do not know Idaho law at all, and I'm a little surprised at the technicality that's being used to remove the death penalty as part of this because that should be dictated on the factors involving the actual acts, not some sort of technical thing because the prosecution didn't provide some piece of paper. At least that's what I think I understood you to say, this judge making a technical ruling and removing the death penalty.
Yeah.
So I don't quite understand that. If I apply the Texas standard to that case you're talking about, I don't like to say these people's names to give them any kind of recognition. But in that particular case, in my mind, I didn't see any reason for the death penalty not to go forward. I didn't see any reason to try that case as a non-death capital. But again, Idaho law different than Texas. So I think both of them qualified, and they needed to be rehabilitated, in my view. The evildoers case, again, I'm looking at it through the prism of my experience in Texas, and he's a poster child for the death penalty. So this business about, and I get the defense attorneys what they're doing. I understand it. They're doing, because look, the evidence is so strong in the evildoers case, and they know that, and the defense knows that. So they're pulling these defense tactics, pointing at technicalities, and they didn't do this and they didn't do that, to save his life. And that is what they are focused on right now. I don't think, based on the evidence, that there's going to be anything other than a conviction in this case. Now, having said that, you never know what a jury's going to do. But the presumption that is what's going to happen, again, the main focus for these defense attorneys is to save his life. And if that means getting the death penalty removed from the mix, then they've done that. If they go into the trial and the death penalty is still on the table and they are going to try this as a death penalty case, it's still going to be the same set of circumstances for the defense attorneys. Try to save his life. So if he is convicted and they go into punishment, however they do that in Idaho, I'm assuming there's the possibility that they could come back with a verdict in the punishment phase other than the death penalty. But they're going to go for it. And I know in Texas, if they don't come back for the with the death penalty, then it's an automatic life with no parole. So The defense attorneys are doing what they're doing. I just don't understand the judges making decisions about that based on procedural technicalities. I guess that's the issue I have. We need to look at the case. This is what this defendant did, and these are the considerations for the death penalty based on what they did. And if it calls for the death penalty to be pursued, then so be it. But to take the death penalty off the table because some piece of paper wasn't submitted, unless it's some sort of a Brady or Morton violation and it was exculpatory, then I don't understand the judge's reasoning in this. Unless it's just a judge that's not a death penalty. I mean, there's a bunch of them out there like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that's just my observation about what the decisions are being made and regarding the death penalty.
Yeah.
In Idaho, in the 2 cases.
Yeah. Well, Scott Duffy, the government here is basically kind of barking back and saying, well, the defense is focusing primarily on removing the death penalty as opposed to contesting his guilt. That's interesting. So it's like they're not saying, yeah, my client's not guilty. They're just, so what does that tell you about their defense? Like, do they feel like their defense is weak?
Well, I think they did that before, right? That you got the wrong guy. Everything is wrong. Everything the cops did was wrong. You know, this is moving into year 3. Right? We're 2022, November.
Yeah. I guess 2025.
Yeah. So if I remember, you know, it was first, hey, you got the wrong guy and rush to judgment, this and that. And so it's since we're seeing this really be delayed for whatever reason, and it sounds like it's both prosecution and defense. Somebody tries to delay it for whatever reason to help develop more evidence or this or that, and then defense doing their things to delay. Ultimately, it seems like it's playing, okay, so the guilt thing, and they probably have seen much more with regards to discovery. So now it's okay. Now that the death penalty is on the table, let's at least move to try to get that removed, and anything they can do for their client that is a win. If the judge will side in their favor, but ultimately, it will be interesting to see where this goes, to a trial or to a plea. As I've seen some things, absolutely, things are put on the table in order to try to get a plea of some sort. If when they talk, and unlike Phil, having put people, that many people on the DP list, I would say that ultimately it comes down to the prosecutors talking with the victims' families and then seeing what they have to go. If I can only imagine if the victims' families are all for it and say, do not negotiate that aspect, the prosecutors would honor that.
Well, the Gonzalez family has been very vocal that they do want it on the table. Interesting point from Shari Douglas. I think it doesn't matter what his sentence is. If he's in Gen Pop, he's not going to make it long. Phil, if he is convicted, are they going to keep him separated, or are they going to feed him to the wolves? Because this guy's definitely a target.
Well, if he's convicted and is assessed the death penalty, he will be on death row in Idaho. He's not going to be in general population. So they're much in the way that Texas is. There is a unit where death row inmates are housed, and they are separate from all the general population. They get, I think, an hour a day out of their cell in a little rec room area by themselves. They don't even get to gaggle together. So, if he is assessed the death penalty, he'll be sitting there for however many years it takes them to execute it. He'll have a lot of time to think about it.
If I could, Phil, with regards to Texas, not Idaho, a person in Texas who is going to be prosecuted with the death penalty on the table, are they two leading up to segregated from in a different pod or a different section?
Oh, while they're in the jail population, no, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know of any process or procedure that isolates them there. So
Gotcha.
they're now there may. I know that they do populate different inmates within the jail system depending on what they're charged with, but in terms of isolation, I'm not aware of that. I don't believe that applies at the Harris County Jail, at least not to my knowledge.
Yeah. By the way, Mr. Kohberger has a hearing, is back in court on Thursday. Super Planner Girl is actually a super planner, believe it or not. If you wouldn't mind putting that in the calendar, I don't know if the COE is present, but this Thursday coming up, we'll probably take that live for you. The trial's set for, I love how the Brits say it, 11th August 2025. Us Americans would say August 11th. We put the number after the month, but I feel like 11th August sounds so much more proper. Do you guys, Scott, do you feel like it's more proper?
Yeah, to see it is something. It seems much more formal.
Yeah, like us Americans are so.
We use that in the Marines. That's
Oh, you
the order.
did?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So the Marines are sophisticated, unlike us Americans. Anyway, okay, so moving on here. One of the other issues at play is the defense team. They've been quite vocal. Now they want documents unsealed relating to DNA, Scott Duffy. There's three primary points here. The first one is how the DNA was used. They're arguing that both Bryan Kohberger and the public have a right to understand how genetic information was utilized in the investigation, emphasizing the importance of a public hearing to ensure a fair trial. Do you agree, Scott? Why is it important? I personally don't really care, but that's me, and I'm not a DNA kind of guy. But constitutionally speaking, that's what is important. Is this? Are they making a good point here?
I don't know if they're making a good point. It is interesting to see how they didn't want anything out there before trial, and now they want something out there before trial. So they obviously see something that they think they can skew that might not otherwise be able to do in a courtroom. That's my only thought for this. Hoping that maybe they can taint somebody, a potential juror. So it is a little confusing as to why they're pursuing this, because to pursue a public disclosure is not it's not going to do anything in the courtroom. It's not. So I am a little bit shocked by that, and I'd be interested. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Are they talking about the IgG, the
Yeah, I think they're talking about the IgG. Actually,
and ultimately, for the IgG, it still comes down to it that if an IgG led you to,
by the way, for those who do not
tree,
know, it's investigative genetic genealogy. That's the stuff they use off of like not ancestry.com, but similar websites. Go ahead.
So that's an investigative tool. It still comes down to the actual DNA swab taken from your suspect and doing a side by side, just like a fingerprint. A fingerprint can hit off in the system. Hey, we have an APHIS hit, similar to a CODIS, but ultimately for trial, you're going to have somebody come in who's going to testify in that chain of custody. You took this swab, and then you're going to have your DNA scientist who's going to come in from the lab and say, and I did the side by side comparison. So it's interesting to see they're going this route, but ultimately, I don't see that making any difference.
Yeah. Off topic, but important. Hi, Phil. My condolences for the sheriff deputy. I did not hear about this, who lost his life this week in the Houston area. Prayers to Canine Officer Rocky. I hope he makes it, followed by Vesper Martini. RIP
Yeah, that
to
was
Deputy Jesus Vargas.
Deputy Jesse Vargas,
Yeah.
Brazoria County Sheriff's Office, and Rocky, who's one of the canines down there. Deputy Vargas leaves behind a wife and 3 children. And Rocky will recover, I am told. My sources tell me that Rocky will recover and will be back hunting down the bad guys just as they did in this case. Yeah, I would appreciate. Thank you, Gigi. I think that's who that was that brought that up. And be sure to keep that agency. I've worked with a lot of detectives and deputies down there in Brazoria County. Good bunch of guys and hardworking. And so, yeah, keep Jesse's family in your prayers and that agency, Brazoria County Sheriff's Office.
Phil, I don't know the story. So was he on a pursuit? What happened?
Yeah, they're pursuing a guy, and he ends up hiding in a dumpster, but he shoots Jesse, and then as the canine found him, at least I believe I'm correct on this, he shot the canine as well, but was taken into custody.
Scott Duffy, obviously many jurisdictions away from your area in Commonwealth of PA, but as a retired FBI agent, when you hear these stories, what runs through your mind? We're just talking about mortality earlier in the show, but like how hard does it hit for you a couple, maybe 1,500 miles away or so?
Let me can I correct that real quick?
Yeah.
Deputy Vargas was serving a warrant when he was shot.
Wow. Okay. And he was he by himself? Do you serve warrants solo?
I do not know. There is a possibility. It would depend on the type of warrant that it was. If it was something he obtained, he may have gone and served the warrant. But that's what he was. They were in a. Well, I tell you what. Now I believe this is going to be. I'm looking at it here now. He was assigned to the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force. It is these task forces are made up with the U.S. Marshal Service as the lead agency, and there is there are a group of officers from around the area that are put on this particular task force. And this is what they do. They go after violent offenders. And that's what they were doing. They were serving this warrant on this individual. And I worked with those guys when we had really bad guys that we couldn't find. They would go out and find them and get them into custody. So, and I have a lot of good friends that were on Gulf Coast. Most of them are retired now, but we had HPD on the task force. Some of the area constables, Harris County Sheriff's Office, Brazoria County Sheriff's Office, Fort Bend. It's a amalgamation of a variety of agencies that put representatives on this Violent Offenders Task Force, and they stay busy. So they were executing this warrant on this individual in a parking lot. And he obviously did not want to be taken into custody, started shooting, hit Deputy Vargas, killed him, then fled. And I believe he was found in a dumpster by Rocky and shot the canine officer as well.
But they got him alive, Phil?
I believe so, yes. At least he's in custody.
Well, he's going to be permanently rehabilitated, I hope. Phil Waters, forgive my ignorance here, but when a tragedy like this happens in law enforcement, is there financial recompense for the family? Like this is a wife now with 3 young children. Does the county or the state help subsidize her financially?
Yes, and it is substantial. So yes, the family, the children, in terms of finances, will be taken care of. And that, of course, never replaces the lost family member. So,
Well, for all those guys, give Phil a hard time, ladies, men. You see, Phil's got a very soft, tender heart there. Scott Duffy, I was asking you when this sort of thing happens and you're 1,500 miles away, but it's you're retired now, but a part of the brotherhood or sisterhood here. I mean, how does it affect you?
Yes, you can tell with the choking up from Phil that whenever there is a true family, brotherhood, sisterhood, but an absolute true family, and you may never know them, but when you know that they have a badge, and whether you mingle with them at a conference, wherever you go in the world, and so I was a patch collector, and typically in law enforcement, when you're a patch collector, you're collecting patches of every department that you can collect a patch from. For me, I wanted to make sure that I had an interaction with an officer, whether it be on a case, a vacation, whatever have you. And it is amazing to see the connection. And so when there is an officer who is killed in the line of duty, or suffers some catastrophe in the line of duty, it could be a heart attack as a result of an arrest or whatever have you, and that officer goes down, there's a tremendous, you feel it in the gut. It absolutely captures you, no different than a family member, especially not knowing a name or ever coming in contact with them. So it's a true bond. It's something very difficult to explain, but you just have it. It's there, and it's lifelong.
That was
Let
very
me-
well said.
I'm sorry, Scott. Let me make another correction here. So the suspect involved in this thing, Robert Davis, was terminated at the scene by officers after he shot Rocky.
Oh, probably shouldn't say this, but sort of happy to hear that. Onto this is an interesting comment. Phil Waters, if you can help explain this. So one of the other issues, back to DNA, mixing in Bryan Kohberger's defense here, they're saying that these controversial DNA techniques were used, particularly, as Scott said, with the use of investigative genetic genealogy. They were claiming it was unconstitutional, should not be presented to the jury, and they assert that the DNA evidence was illegally gathered. Prosecutors allege that Kohberger's DNA was found on a knife sheath at the crime scene, linking him to the 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students. But then you see here from Caroline Miller, first testing of the empty sheath proved 0 DNA. I did not know that. Suggests Kohberger's DNA was grabbed from his car door handle. 0 results on first testing proves manipulation. Phil Waters, Scott's shaking his head. I don't fully understand this. Like, what is she saying? Is Caroline saying that they then got DNA off of a car door handle and then placed that somehow onto the sheath? Do you understand this?
Well, what I'm getting from this is that the allegation here is that law enforcement planted the DNA on the scabbard. Is that what the gist of this is?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Well, that's nonsense. I'm not, that doesn't even deserve a response. Yeah. Quite frankly, that's a stupid allegation. Who's making that allegation?
Caroline up above. I don't want to throw her under the bus, but
no.
Who is she?
She's a member of STS Nation.
Oh,
but yeah, Scott Duffy, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just say,
is it on here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed all that, but that's a ridiculous assertion.
No.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, and I would just say, think about the just from that sentence. So, if there was 0 DNA from that sheath, how did they come up with Kohberger, and then just go and get his DNA and make some connection. So ultimately,
point.
something led to. So it's people have to look at these statements and look a little bit broader.
Wow. Look at this. I didn't. Rocky the canine was shot 3 times and will recover and can go back to work. The vet said, that's amazing. I can't believe a dog is shot 3 times and survives. Unbelievable. Vesper Martini
Can I
Yep.
add something else here, since we're talking about Deputy Vargas, and I'm reading kind of the details about what happened. But the guy that the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force, this is what they do. As I've said, they go after violent offenders. I mean, these guys are bad guys. And in this particular case, this guy had a criminal history going back to 1986 that escalated in violence as he grew older. He spent 2 terms in prison, at least 2 terms in prison. The warrant that Deputy Vargas was attempting to serve on him was for shooting a family friend. And he also had outstanding warrants for sexually assaulting a relative. So these are bad guys.
Good riddance.
And this may sound a little odd, but I'm thankful that they went ahead and took care of business right there instead of dragging this crap out. So again, people don't understand that and look, he gave his life for the entire community, trying to get this bad guy off the street. So people need to understand that when they start running around here criticizing the police and all the crap that a few bad apples get involved in. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I'll tell you what,
I agree with you. This
no greater sacrifice does a man make than he gives his life for a friend. So that's in the Bible, by the way, for all of you people that are interested in that. So
that's for sure. This year could make me cry, Scott Duffy. From Amber Waves of Grain. The canine Rocky was shot too. They airlifted Rocky, followed here by canine Rocky's on the mend, was up and ate a bit. Now there's some people, not STS Nation, Scott Duffy, but others who might say, why would you ever airlift a dog? First of all, I don't know.
Police officer.
Yes. Scott Duffy, your response. Just got Phil.
Yeah, it's absolutely Phil. That dog is a police officer, and that dog knows one thing, and that is, until it can no longer, it will pursue justice, and so thereby the dog, like anyone else, and I can tell you, having wanted to, but not having been a canine officer. I can tell you that human police officer, canine, will interchange their lives for each other to get the job done. It's amazing.
Yeah, my father used to raise German Shepherds for canine officers in Tulsa, and was one of the forces behind getting canine officers on the Tulsa Police Department. So I have a little bit, and we had a German Shepherd for 12 years.
I was just going to ask you. I'm shocked that you don't have a German Shepherd. How come?
Well, we did then. When I was growing up, that was the dog we had. Cindy, silver and black Shepherd, and those German Shepherds are special. I mean, they are members of the family. I know most people say that about their animals, but Shepherds are they're a different cut. And the only time, my dad was an old cowboy, so he didn't emote ever. But I will tell you, the only time
sounds like me, Phil. Sounds like me. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
The only time I ever saw my father cry was when he had to put Cindy down. So those those canine guys hold a special place for me, and those dogs.
This is enough to make me just crawl into my bed until Monday because I can't take this stuff. But you do have Nugget and Poppy.
Oh yeah,
and,
we got Nugget and Poppy. Yeah,
and I feel like Nugget would actually do well, in the line of duty. I feel like Nugget would hold his own.
You can put a badge on Nugget. Oh yeah, she'd take care of business.
Yeah, biting ankles and stuff. Look at this, Scott Duffy. Were you aware of this and a couple more things on Kohberger? Them opening it up to everybody with some crazy stories. He may have PTSD. A dog can get PTSD. I think Ethel has PTSD from the COE. No offense, COE. Did you know this though, that a canine could be potentially suffering from PTSD? Like, are they going to have to, I guess, observe him? Do you know, or keep an eye on him to see if he is coming back? I guess with his head on straight, ready to do the job.
Well, I am sure that they will take Rocky and they will test him, reorient him, put him through some paces to make sure that, look, when a gunshot goes off, everybody is alerted. Dogs are no different. And so it's going to have to be, they're going to, I'm sure, determine whether or not that there's been no after effect on this thing that would keep him from performing his duties. And of course, if they determine that there is, they're not going to put him in harm's way. So, there'll be due diligence on making sure that Rocky can and is able to return to full duty.
Yeah. Well, Scott, listen, they also released, and man, I'm wishing for a speedy recovery for Rocky here, but the prosecution also revealed their witness list, partial. It's a 400-page document. I mean, I just cannot imagine, and this is a partial list, but the first people on the list are FBI special agents, a guy named Nick Balance, Ballance. He's a member of the FBI cellular analysis survey team. And then Tony Emel, serving as a video identification expert. And then you go on and on. You've got the Latah County coroner, the Moscow Police Department, crime scene forensic expert, blah, 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 toxicology experts, and on it goes. But these two FBI agents, especially the one with the cellular analysis, how key are they to a conviction here?
Yeah, especially, well, both, but the CAST, the cellular analysis surveillance team, is the expert, and so they're going to bring everything of that training into question. That's what the defense has, to try to pick apart the testifier, because the evidence stands for itself. So they're the ones that put together the complete analysis of where he was, when he was, and that's it. That's gonna, when somebody who's not going, most likely will not testify, how do you say that my client wasn't there, when a FBI CAST agent is going to be saying the phone that was recovered from him, if that's most likely, and was there, was exactly wherever the cellular analysis surveillance team agent is going to say, and so, did somebody else have it? All that comes out. So their goal is to map out and make it very clear to the jury, this phone was not in anybody else's custody. It is the phone subscribed to, belonging to that guy sitting there. And it was in and around and at the crime scene, or fleeing the crime scene, heading to the crime scene, all that. So it's going to be integral.
I don't know why that happens. I get muted. I feel like it's someone at STS Nation. But anyway, we're going to continue to follow this. Again, Bryan Kohberger is due back in court this Thursday. Super Planner, if you're still here, just please remind me of that. Moving on to a few horrible stories and then good ones. It's weird. I feel like stories come in patterns. First few stories are awful family tragedies. But what I'd like to do is if you have any questions for Phil and Scott, if it's for Phil, all capital F's, 3 capital F's. If it's for Scott, 3 capital S's. Some people are saying why an F for Phil? Because he spells it F-I-L, not P-H-I-L. So 3 F's for Phil, 3 S's for Scott, and I will immediately go to the bottom here by the way, someone pointing out Ned Smith, Ned Smith of all people, the woman with the hair bun and the sewing needle in the bun, is saying that these canines also are wearing bulletproof vests. So that's perhaps why he was able to survive. Story number 1, Scott. Seems like your Commonwealth is in the news a lot. This is from North Sewickley Township outside of Pittsburgh. This is a family massacre over the weekend. It left 2 teen boys and the parents dead. Clifford Hunt Jr., 19, and his older brother Cody were airlifted to a nearby hospital where they both succumbed to their injuries. A 911 call from inside the residence alerted police to the shooting. It's being treated as an unaliving / murder. They're saying that the son, who's a junior, shot the 3 other family members before pointing the gun to his own head. It's not only one tragedy, but it's 4 all at the same time. And I can't imagine how many lives are ruined over this. Autumn Asher said she had just delivered a family of ducks to the mother prior to the shooting. And she said she was over the moon about getting these ducks. She had a whole spot set up for them. My question, Scott, because there's a few more horrible family stories. What was the breakdown here, do you think? I mean, does something like this, in your opinion, just happens? You know, my dad used to say life turns on a dime, but this is like a huge turn. I know you don't know the case well, but do you think this was like just a crazy way to approach the situation in the moment, or do you think this was a bigger issue, bigger problem?
Yeah, no, this was brewing. This is not. It's not common, but these horrible displays of it's a domestic violence, whether it be a parent taking out the other spouse and all kids because no one else can live without me, and then you have kids that then take out their whole family. Whether you add a horrible mental health, lack thereof, of diagnoses, or just whatever it is, it's a tragedy all around. It is not something that happens overnight, and other family members will probably be able to lend tremendous amount of a backstory to investigators. It's just there's it's a ticking time bomb, and it went off. So it was heard before that there was indicators, and whether law enforcement can do anything about it, mental health can do anything about it, that will remain to be seen. But it's time and time again this happens.
Entire family ruined for generationally, which is crazy. Great question here from Christy. For both, we'll toss it to Phil. I have a dry cough that will not go away for like 8 weeks. Probably not a good sign. Every bad illness has a dry cough as a symptom. When working heavy, dark cases, Phil, how would you mentally escape in order to take care of yourself? Great question. Bill Waters, that question is for you.
Well, I've answered this question before. I'm grounded in my faith, and I just have a great cop's wife and a very supportive family. So, I was able to separate those things that I was seeing in the workplace from my home life. And I never brought that stuff home with me. I didn't write reports at home. I didn't look at evidence at home. When I walked out the door and headed for the house, which was 45 miles away from my work, that was my fortress of solitude. So
that's a long drive. How long is that drive in Houston?
Well, depending on the traffic, I knew I was going to spend at least 3 hours driving back and forth.
Whoa.
Hour and a half each way.
From Blackwood in the Republic of Ireland, another great question. A little Phil heavy here, but that's okay. The ratio is going to be disproportionate. Does Phil sing? We know in Hawaii you've always got the music playing. Do you sing as well?
Not in public.
Only in the shower. Only in the shower. Scott Duffy, unfortunately, the other horrible family story goes back to you because Phil was just talking. I've got to keep the ratio even. This is a Florida teen who made news a while ago because police claimed that he killed his father in self-defense. But now he's accused of murdering his mother. Guy's name is Colin Griffith. He was charged back in September in Polk County, Florida. Police claim in the affidavit that this 17-year-old calls 911 for help, saying that he and his mom had gotten in a fight, that she fell on a knife. She fell on a knife. The medical examiner said there's no way this woman fell on a knife. It's just not possible. And his quote in body cam footage, which was obtained at a previous DV episode between the mother and son, he's saying, I was saying, and I quote, "Mom, I'm not a psychopath. I'm not this murder. I'm just trying to peacefully leave or peacefully coexist. She kept telling me to shut up. And when I wouldn't shut up, she hit me." Father dies, mother's dead. Is this a misstep in the investigation? Because they say it was in self-defense of the father. With the father, are they going to have to go back now and reinvestigate that?
Yeah, I was, as were relaying the notes, I was wondering, okay, what are the facts to the death of the father, and so yeah, I would say, does that get revisited, or is it possible to be both, where you defend your life from an attack by your dad, but then you also have some severe issues and then go after your mother? So it's that sounds like there's some rehashing to do.
Phil Waters, another horrible, perhaps the most horrible. Then we'll get to some lighter true. It's hard, true crime news can be heavy, I guess. This story comes to us from the UK, where a lot of STS Nation resides. A father is accused of stabbing his teenage daughter to death, Phil, but he insists that they were just play fighting in the kitchen at the time. The father's name is Simon Vickers, 50 years old. The daughter, Scarlett Vickers, 14 years old. The father denies both the murder and manslaughter. The defense attorney said he told the court that he and his daughter had just been, quote unquote, messing around together in the kitchen in a normal, playful way. The defense attorney, and I quote, "Her body must have come into contact with a sharp knife, and she quickly died as a result of a single knife wound." He, the defense attorney says, Simon Vickers, will bear moral responsibility for his daughter's death for the rest of his life. However, he denies completely that he did anything unlawful or deliberate to cause his daughter's tragic death. According to the BBC, the court heard that Scarlett suffered a 4-inch wound to her chest and bled to death after she lunged towards Vickers and the blade just went in. I can't take much more of this. Phil Waters, I mean, how are they going to determine whether this guy is full of what? Or, this is going to come down to a medical examiner. He's saying she lunged forward. He had the knife. What's going on here, Phil?
it's always good to go to the beginning of something like this. How old is this father?
50 years old for the father, 14
He's
or 15
50?
for the 50. She's
50.
14, and the daughter's 14.
And she's 14?
14, yeah.
14. And he says they were just messing around in the kitchen.
Yeah, I believe the direct quote was messing about, because they
messing
are
about in the proper English vernacular.
Yes, correct.
Well, I question the judgment of a 50-year-old man who would think that messing about in the kitchen with a real freaking knife with a blade on it with his 14-year-old daughter is a fun time in the house. So he would be an interesting guy to talk to interview.
Yeah.
And
I would pay to see that.
Explain what happened. And then you would have him act it out and so forth and so on. So he's admitting to what happened, which is good. But the purpose of interviewing him is to find out how it happened and why. And hopefully through that interview, you will get to the truth about why this even occurred. My thinking is, having had two daughters that were at some point in time were 14 years of age, and the things that we were going through with them, I never asked any of them to come into the kitchen and let's mess around about in the kitchen with a knife. But and his assert, I think he said that the defense attorney is saying that he did nothing unlawful.
Yeah, it was merely an accident.
Well, of course he did.
Yeah, the knife just went 4 inches deep.
At the very least, if he were in Texas, at the very least, he'd be charged with criminal negligent homicide. That this may end up being a manslaughter type charge. Could be voluntary, could be involuntary, and or if they somehow can prove intent to take her life with the knife, then you're talking about a murder charge. So, I think his explanation is ridiculous. I would be curious to know if there's anyone else in the house when this occurred. You need, this is an investigation, right? You need to know what were the circumstances under which this whole thing occurred. Messing about in the kitchen with a knife with your 14-year-old daughter doesn't make any sense on its face. So good luck with trying to sell that story.
Yeah, by the way, there's a lot of people in STS that say they would not be surprised if they found out that he was doing other things with his daughter, which I think you understand. Vickers, according to Blurry Lights here, the father says he accidentally threw the knife during a play fight. Here it's BBC saying she lunged
threw
into
the knife, play fighting.
Yeah, you know who did that was the OnlyFans models claiming the same thing. Courtney Clenny here in America.
Threw the knife.
Yeah, threw the knife.
Well, that's even dumber.
Yeah,
I mean,
like a ninja.
What were you thinking?
Yeah. This is a great question. Scott Duffy, Supreme Court, they ruled today that they are not going to, that they will allow a ban on TikTok if it is to go through. They're not going to block the ban. So Scott Duffy, to both, but to Scott, with the TikTok ban looming, the concern for TikTok evidence preservation is paramount. How many of your investigations have involved TikTok? We are at a place in the world, I think the Murdoch trial, as a matter of fact, was a TikTok video, I believe, of the dog kennel. What happens if TikTok goes away and there's 97 detectives with TikTok clips that they maybe can't get back to now?
Yeah, so the latter part, I haven't had any of my investigations with TikTok, other type of digital platforms, but not TikTok. And then, like any other company that may be dissolving, there are requirements. Like, for example, I would imagine any videos, regardless of like who's the actual controller of TikTok, that the servers are here, that whatever is whatever data would be required from whatever day it changes hands or is going to change hands, suspended, whatever have you, that the data would be required to be preserved. And any data that has been preserved through search warrant and preservation letters would also remain. So I don't see from a law enforcement side, evidence side, that there would be an issue.
By the way, STS Nation, the best community, they're all screaming at me. It was Snapchat with Murdoch. It was not TikTok. They're all the same to me. I was reading about cellular phone addictions. It's really scary, actually. They're saying if you put your phone on grayscale, which I don't even know how. I can't even figure out enough technology to figure out how to put my phone on grayscale, and it was driving me crazy because I meant to ask the COE this. But basically, I'm completely addicted to my cell phone. It's probably why my neck is screwed up, and it's intended for that purpose. Scott Duffy, I'm going to come back to you. This is a little different. So if you're squeamish, I would close your ears right now.
Well, I will tell you an answer to that question that was to both of us. I did not have anything on TikTok, but I did have a case on Snapchat.
Oh, there you go.
The actual murder occurred on Snapchat.
Yeah, look at that. That's wild. A former New Jersey school janitor, it's my home state, I'm proud to say, he's now facing 8 years in prison. His name is Giovanni Impellizzeri. Sounds like I'm just blanking. What's the Sopranos? I couldn't think of the Sopranos. This is South Jersey, Scott, Cumberland County. The charges, he's facing 8 years because he is now admitted as a school custodian to tainting children's utensils and the cafeteria food with feces, urine, and bleach. Feces, urine, and bleach. He's also pleaded guilty to third-degree possession of child SA abuse material. My question for you, how the hell did this guy get a job inside a school? He was also, by the way, seen, shall we say, diddling himself and doing number one on pillows and kitchen bowls. Scott, by the way, that's another theme tonight. We're going to get back to urine in a moment, but I think I can say urine on YouTube. But Scott Duffy, how did this guy get a job inside a school in my home state of New Jersey?
I have no clue. Who does he know? I find it very difficult.
On his resume.
By the way, in fairness, this is closer to Philly than it is from where this is Cumberland. This is way south. Scott, I know you're not a psychologist, but was he like getting off on doing this? What was going on here? Is he angry at kids? What's happening?
Well, when you said that he had I'm taking a search warrant had uncovered these videos, but my guess is that it was all part of his sick pleasuring, whatever it was part of his the whole shtick. It's
do you think he had
it all seems to go together for me with when you put that part of what types of videos that this he might have been very much video recording all that as well, whatever he's doing, and then imagining what I would like to know if while lunch period was going on, was he more so in the lunchroom? Just
by the way, a great question here from Buttercup and Scott. I think just videos and posts from the app Telegram, which is supposed to be encrypted, shows him wiping his private parts on various utensils and items from the school. He was also, by the way, performing sex acts with items from the school, as well as doing things that would endanger the well-being of the students at the school.
Did you say he was posting the videos?
A tipster had the videos from
okay,
Telegram.
So he's not only a pervert, but he is stupid.
Yeah, but also,
okay.
Phil, I think you missed the lead there. He is performing sexual acts with items from the school. What does that mean? Phil, do you have a guess on that? Was he like playing with the like
Well,
eraser?
Obviously he must have had a very troubled childhood that was involving school. So he is now getting retribution, I guess, on anonymous school equipment and children and anything to do with the school. That would be an interesting guy to interview. I mean, look, Scott, right?
You could say that. You could say that again. You could say
that would be an interesting guy to interview to find out what in the world has got you in this place. That's. I mean, there's just when you think you've heard it all, I guess you get somebody like this that comes along. So
I used to work for a guy named Bob Richbloom. He sadly passed away from brain cancer. But he used to say, people, the problem that won't go away. McSpunky, I meant to say hi to you the other day. I've seen you in the chat. McSpunky is one of the OGs, great guy. Apologies for not, calling you out earlier. Caroline Miller here explaining it all in 4 words. It's a voyeurism disorder. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a disorder. Yeah, that's what we're calling it. Okay.
My father would have a different take as a psychiatrist. He would say the guy's choosing to do stupid things. That's what I think my dad would say. Another story involving urine. Scott Duffy, I got to come back to you on this one. This is a United Airlines passenger. I bring it up as a public service announcement. He was intoxicated and thought on a transatlantic flight on United Airlines, it'd be a good idea to pee on the seat. The flight had to be diverted to near Blackwood Ore in Dublin, Ireland. Zachary Greer, he lives in New York City. He received a 2-month suspended sentence and a fine of $5,000, whatever the equivalent is, $5,000, whatever they use in Ireland is, and has to appear in court in Ireland. He mixed a tranquilizer Xanax, he's 34 by the way, with alcohol to combat his nerves from flying before he started acting unruly. Scott Duffy, hypothetically, you are on this flight. You suddenly see a man take out his, manhood and begin to urinate on 27B. What would you do in this situation?
So it wasn't an incontinence issue where he just went in his seat. He actually used the seat as if he was at a urinal. Am I correct?
Correct. Oh, right. Like it was like right. Correct. It wasn't like his Depends leaked. It was an overt act.
Yeah. What was
like?
What would I do?
What as a retired FBI agent, what would you
Mm-hmm.
do if you saw him doing this on the plane?
I know.
I mean, if you restrain, I was going to say, if you restrained him, you might get like leaked on. So what?
You got to make sure he's finished.
Yeah,
before you take any action. Before you say anything to it.
Is he sleepwalking, and is he having one of those childhood dreams where you believe you're walking to go to the bathroom, but the hall just keeps getting longer and longer and longer? You can't get to the bathroom, like an unending nightmare. That's.
Hey, look, man, there's something to that, what Scott just said, because when I was a small child, my mom, I walked into my brother's room and pissed in the toy box. So it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah,
but
that's probably.
I have not relived that moment since. So
yeah, not
and now that you brought it up, you won't live it down. Continue.
I can't believe that anyone.
I'm an open book, Scott. What can I say?
Yeah, I literally cannot believe anyone watches this show on Fridays, but I got to say, it's my favorite time of the week by far. So I don't know what it says about me. I got to let Phil's got to go, but I do have one other story very quickly. A French woman, I don't know if you heard about this. She was swindled out of over $800,000 by Brad Pitt. She thought she was talking to Brad Pitt. She was contacted by someone claiming to be Brad's mother. And she told this woman that it's a woman like you that my son Brad needs. She bought into it and immediately sent out 10,000, again, whatever they're using. I guess 10,000 euros.
Oh, my God.
And she said, there's so few men who write you this kind of thing. Because she started getting letters from Brad Pitt. And she said, I like the man that I was talking to. He really knew how to talk to women. It was just very, very well done. Turns out the AI, images were generated by AI. She, after reportedly telling the scammer that she had recently divorced her own husband, she sent almost all of her 775,000 euros from the divorce settlement to Brad Pitt. Scott Duffy, how can someone be this unaware? Do you have an answer for that?
So PSA.
Yeah.
Brad, if you're listening, send the money back. There's no need to keep that woman's money.
Yeah. Brad, you got tons of money. What's the matter with you? Yeah. Final question is, I find a very 5-second story. Her name is Ayrin, Ayrin. She is now admitted to the fact that she is dating her AI boyfriend. She started the relationship, Phil, while scrolling on Instagram. She stumbled upon a video of a woman asking ChatGPT to play a role of neglectful boyfriend. The response from ChatGPT was, "Sure, kitten, I can play that game." And now, months later, she's madly in love with Leo. That is who she's named. It's not even a robot, I don't think. It's just like an AI relationship. Phil, has our world gone to hell in a handbasket? Your final thoughts?
Well, it's heading there. I mean, this is it's a fallen world, and that's all I'll say. And everybody out there knows what I mean. And so the haters can get cranked up on that. But in terms of final thoughts, there's a lot of troubled people out there. I mean, we've talked about just a few of them. I mean, they are everywhere, in every clime and place. And we just, when we come across those folks, we've got to be sensitive to where they are and try to help them any way we can. It's just of course, in my case, and I think in Scott's, what we try to do is reflect the love of Christ to them, that there is somebody up there that cares about them and loves them, regardless of their situation. A lot of troubled folks, Lord. And again, I will remind everybody to, keep those people in LA in their prayers, and those firefighters as they're trying to get that thing under control, and pray for the rain. Pray for the rain.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I think Brad Pitt really needs that money. He just had to give, Ida's saying he just had to give $80 million to Angelina. So there you go. He's probably got a few extra dollars beyond that. By the way,
everybody has a great weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Leo Wren, I would like to hire you as a producer. COE, can we change this thumbnail to urine, death, and diddling? I would love to do it. Will we get demonetized? We're probably already demonetized. If we can change the thumbnail from whatever the Kohberger thing was to urine, death, and diddling, we could get 500 million views is at a minimum.
That would cover it.
Yeah, final thing. I know I'm going to touch long. Sorry. I bring this up because it's a personal story. Before Carmen and I pivoted to true crime, Scott Duffy, we were interviewing interesting guests. One of them is simply known as the Sperminator. He's a math professor in New York City, and actually a really nice guy. He has impregnated with his donated sperm. He has well over 100 children. And then I read an article, Kyle Gordy, 32, is now earned the title of the world's most prolific sperm donor. He's on track to father 100 children by 2025. He's already a biological dad to 87 kids worldwide. And what I don't understand is the sperminator has more spawn than this guy, and he is not being recognized as like the world's greatest sperm donor. So I just wanted to share that with you because we actually had the real sperminator on, and I actually am going to email him to let him know this. Yeah, I'm sure he knows already. Scott, if you want to respond to the Sperminator 2.0, please do. If not, you final thoughts. And again, I'm apologizing to Phil for keeping him late. Phil, if you want to just click off, it's fine.
No, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Plus
I can't get over
all this talk about urine. I really need to go to the bathroom.
Scott, make it quick.
Okay. So add to your urine, death, diddling, and sperm.
Yeah, that's good. COE, get that made up immediately. Please. Look at it. Please hit the like button. I wonder what someone who's never listened to the Friday show, who just tuned into, look at this, Survivor C, could be one of them, Catching Alive. Yeah. Let me know if this is your first Friday show ever. Let me know why you watch it. Pretty much it. I got to let Phil go. Love you, America. We're back. I already posted 3 shows for next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Obviously, subject to change. Huge thanks to Phil and Scott for always being here on Fridays. 2 of the best investigators in the nation. Love you, America. Love you, the UK. Love you, Canada. Love you, Cape Town, South Africa, the Republic of Ireland. They were all here today. And, of course, the custodian in New Jersey. Wow.